Hello there, my name's Kellyanne and I'm a stroke specialist speech and language therapist. I've done this work for over 16 years now and I'm ever more passionate about helping people receive the treatment they require. Life after a stroke brings many obstacles, many difficulties, because not being able to communicate is indeed life-changing. If you are the loved one of a family member who has had a stroke, I know that it is of great importance that you seek and find the right help. And I'm afraid it's not that easy to find. There aren't that many speech and language therapists around, and working in specialisms, even fewer. As I say, I've done this job for many, many years, and I've always been growing to learn new and innovative methods to treat speech and language difficulties. My main focus is to provide enough therapy to make a difference. We received a report last year from speech and language therapists and researchers that looked at the dosage effect of speech and language therapy. They looked at nationwide how much speech and language therapy people were receiving after a stroke. In the study, they found that a patient needs 100 hours of speech and language therapy to make some difference. So that equates to 1 or 2 sessions every week for a year. But then when they looked at service provision across the country, they found that people were receiving on average around 4 hours of speech and language therapy when in hospital, and when home in the community on average 6 hours. Now this is a national average, so there is variation around the country, but as a study that is indeed quite concerning. I do believe services have changed since COVID also, and I just see that as there being more obstacles to treating people. For a good period of time there, we were all wearing masks and we were no longer around the kitchen table doing therapy. Speech and language therapy requires the individual to work incredibly hard. People tell me over the years that they may have had incredible lives, doing challenging things and really living a full life. But when they have a stroke, it's one of the most challenging things that they have ever met as an obstacle in life. They find it incredibly challenging, and unfortunately the recovery of speech and language, it's just not the same as anything else. I say this regularly on a day-to-day basis. I'll say, if only speech and language was like packing your lunch or doing the shopping, when you've done it and it's out the way with and it's complete. With speech and language therapy, I always use this phrase, it's a marathon and not a sprint. When we think about speech and language, it took a long time to develop from the point of birth. In fact, we are preparing ourselves and we're being primed even when we're in the womb to be hearing speech sounds and musical sounds that play a really important role in the melody of our speech in later life. It takes many, many years. We don't come out walking and talking. These functions take time, and it is no different as we reacquire the speech and language system. This course focuses primarily on the motor speech disorders that follow stroke. As we rehabilitate the speech system, it takes time, it takes repetition, and it takes frequency. And that is why an e-course is a great idea, particularly if you don't have very much speech and language therapy provision around you. The speech is not going to get better on its own, sadly. It takes a lot of focused effort. And another thing that I say on a weekly basis to people is, are you retired now? Because this is going to become your new job, your rehabilitation. And I encourage people to be looking at their rehabilitation each and every day. I also encourage the balance of rest, but this will be your new job. And if you are family members of somebody with a speech disorder, it would be so good if you can do this walk together and you can support them as you go. A little bit about me. I trained to be a speech and language therapist by training first in linguistics at the University of Bangor under the direction of Professor David Crystal, who wrote the Encyclopedia of Linguistics. I then went on to study for a Masters of Medical Science in Human Communication Pathology at Sheffield University, where I was under the direction of some wonderful professors and lecturers who really focused on apraxia of speech, and I developed my interest in that very, very early on. After that, I came to work in inner city hospitals in Liverpool, and I worked right across the stroke care pathway. That means meeting people as soon as they've had their stroke in the acute hospital, when at that time they're very acutely unwell, and we look after their immediate communication needs. I also then worked in the rehabilitation settings where people used to stay for a very long time, and thankfully a part of my role and my career has been getting people out of hospital earlier and sooner, because people do really well when they get home with their family, and we can do rehabilitation there just as easily. Soon after qualifying in speech and language therapy, I then trained in neurological music therapy under the direction of Professor Michael Tout from Canada. Neurological music therapy is an innovative approach, and I have programs in this. I offer these programs because so often I found that people who couldn't make any response to speech and language therapy were left with no treatment at all. And so I would encourage you to check out my neurological music therapy course. So I want to congratulate you for finding the right help. We know from the studies on the dosage effect that therapy works if we offer it intensely and frequently. If you have an e-course, there is no obstacle in your way. You can play these videos over and over, and you can support your family member simply by supporting the IT side of things, placing a tablet in the right place or a laptop, and just encouraging them to come to the table to receive their speech therapy. It's a real honour to be on this journey with you, and I wish you all the best in your rehabilitation journey.